And I said, that makes sense. I'll call you back. Let me go in my prayer closet. I went in my prayer closet and I sat in silence and I just asked God one question. Can you tell me why? And his clear words, if I didn't allow the LGBTQ community to be so loud, would the church still be silent? That's why when people say, I was born gay, my first question is, when did you have your first same-sex attraction? Oh, second grade. I didn't know people were born in second grade.
Hello friends, welcome back to this channel. This is a video testimony of a young lady who was part of the LGBTQ community. She was attracted to same-sex marriage. She was lost on her way to death, but by the unmerited grace of God saved her. Now she is able to share her testimonies, and she's challenging the church members to stop ignoring and judging the LGBTQ community and go out and invite them to the church. But one of the very powerful points she mentions in this video is that she mentions about the condition of the church. The SDA church members, the remnant people of God, are not prepared to receive this type of people. Please watch till the end.
So when I first got saved and got delivered from homosexuality, my first thought was, wow, I'm about to go into the gay clubs, the gay parks, the gay neighborhoods, and to all the gay club owners, everyone that I knew that was in the lifestyle, and go share with them what Jesus done for me. And the Lord said, well, wait. When you go to these gay clubs and gay parks, and you go and communicate with everyone that you were once in relationship with, what happens when they listen to you and they want more of me and they go to church? And the church is not prepared to show them the way out. And I said, okay, Lord, that makes sense. He said, I can't begin to prepare the hearts of the people that are battling in homosexuality, and I send them to the safest place that they can go, which is the church. And if the church doesn't know what to do, they'll leave them worse off than they came. So he said, Taisha, I don't want you to go to the gay clubs and the gay parks. I don't want you to go and just reach everyone that you were once in relationship with. I need you to go and reach the church. And so then another thing happened. I said, okay, Lord, I can do that. But in my mind, I thought the church was already prepared because I'm a new believer. So I'm like, this is confusing to me. How is the church not prepared? But I was going to be obedient and I listened. And then the laws began to change, where more people that were involved in homosexuality could be married to the same sex in more states. And so then I asked myself, God, why would you allow this to take place? And you already know how hard it is for an individual to overcome an obstacle like homosexuality. Now they have to overcome something but still go through the process of a divorce. Why would you allow this to become an extra obstacle? So I called a pastor I was really close with at the time, and I asked him, why would God allow this to happen? And he said something very profound. If God wanted to stop it, he would. And I said, that makes sense. I'll call you back. Let me go in my prayer closet. I went in my prayer closet and I sat in silence and I just asked God one question. Can you tell me why? And his clear words, if I didn't allow the LGBTQ community to be so loud, would the church still be silent? Everything that people are seeing and everything that you're witnessing is a distraction, but it's a call for us to become educated and for us to know what to do and how to have the proper approach and the proper response when showing someone the way out. Because what no longer works anymore is saying it's a sin, it's an abomination, it's against the will of God. God does not create anyone he doesn't speak to. Everyone living in sin, they know that it's a sin, it's an abomination, it's against the will of God. But when they asked you as a pastor, as a leader in the church, well, how can I get out? And you say, I don't know, I've never dealt with that. Or I don't know, just change, just stop. That's not enough anymore. So if you think about everything that we're seeing right now, it is a clear reflection of how we once responded. If you think about it, homosexuality has been around forever. And a lot of times now, while we're having to set in settings like this with pastors and teachers and churches, that majority of the people here are not struggling because we never took the time to understand what homosexuality really is until it was put in our faces and we were asked the question, do you believe it's a sin or not? Or why are you not accepting this in your church? And so we are here because if our hearts are prepared and if we know how to respond and react, then God will bring his people. So if you think about it, if you get a young man that walks into your church dressed like a woman, if you get a woman that walks into your church dressed like a man, one thing you have to remember, especially as a pastor and a leader, they don't know anything about you. But there was a member of your church that has so much confidence in your teaching and so much confidence in your character that they convinced this person that this was a good place for them to come and receive love and care and comfort and restoration. That one person. So all of us here today, we may be pastors, leaders, teachers, evangelists, but we have to prepare the church to have a good foundation. Because when a member walks through the doors of your church, the first person they interact with is not the leaders, it's not the pastors, it's the congregation. They are a reflection of the pastor, whether you want them to be or not. If you have an ugly person that in your church talking down on you, the person that they're talking about the church is going to have that same perception of the church. If you get a person speaking highly of your church and highly of your character, the person that has never visited your church, they're going to have that same perception of you when they walk through the doors. And so as leaders and teachers, we know we're going to be judged more strictly. God may give us more insight. We have to study longer. We may have to pray harder. But it's our job to equip the congregation. So when that man or woman walks through the doors that are different, love doesn't mean you're affirming. You treat them like they're a person. Because you got to think about it from their perspective. If a man dresses like a woman walks in your church, whoever invited them to the church, mentally they started to think about it. I'm going to go to the church, but I wonder what they're going to say about my lifestyle because it's visible. I wonder what they're going to say about the heels I wear. I wonder what they're going to say about the sin that I'm wearing. But guess what they do? They still wake up, get dressed, brush their teeth, wash their face, and they show up anyway. And they prepared for the whispers. They prepared for the nasty looks. They've even prepared for people to say something. All so they can sit down and see this man or woman of God that's teaching the word, and hopefully they can get something from it. They went through all of that. And for us to have the audacity to say, you know that's a sin, it's an abomination, it's against the will of God. Why did you come here like that? And we don't even think about how much it took for them to walk and take a seat. And how much mentally they're going through while they're in the church. There's some people that has never felt a conviction until they step foot into a church. You have to imagine what that's doing to them mentally. It's going against everything that they thought they loved, everything they thought they cared about, everything that they wanted. Now they're faced with reality. I might go to hell for this. Can I really go to hell for this? This is stuff that they're thinking about. So we have to be prepared. And the best way to understand someone or to gain an understanding of what homosexuality really is, you have to hear their story. So this is what I want you guys to do. I want everyone to close their eyes. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about anything that you've ever heard about homosexuality. I want you to think about the gay pride parades. I want you to think about transgender, homosexuality, unisex, pansexual, everything, even people you may have in your family. And I want you to go to a gay pride parade, and I want you to remove one thing from this community. I want you to remove the sex. And even when you remove that, you can open your eyes. When you remove the sex, because being a homosexual, you're only in that category if you decide to have an intimate relationship with someone that is in homosexuality. So what happens when you take away the sex? You still have a community of people that are confused about who they are, and they have a disconnect from their natural identity. Homosexuality is not about sex. It's very minute to the issue. And the only way you can understand that is by hearing someone's story. So I'll start with mine. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14, it says, "Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and the cunning and craftiness of people and their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work." So when you look at this picture, beautiful little girl, it looks like she has a bright future ahead of her. Maybe some father-daughter dances, tea parties, dress up, prom, etc. But by looking at the picture, very innocent baby girl, bright eyes, very nice smile. Now let's go to the next picture. The next picture, please. So what happened to that little girl? How could the little girl in a pretty red dress, smiling, holding a ball, eyes lit up, full of joy, turn into that? How? Something happened, because nobody is born like that. That's why when people say, "I was born gay," my first question is, when did you have your first same-sex attraction? Oh, second grade. I didn't know people were born in second grade. The reason why they say, "I was born this way," because the first time they felt a real sense of identity, a real sense of belonging, was when they connected with the thought of homosexuality. When they connected with the thought of same-sex attraction. That's when a spark hit. When people say coming out of the closet, sometimes we ask ourselves the wrong questions. What do you mean you're gay? You like women now? You like men now? When the question should be, I didn't know you were trapped in one. In order for you to come out of a closet, you first have to feel trapped in one. So the result of you coming out, I need to know what happened in there. We'll focus on this when that's the sign of I gave up. Because you don't know what happened in that closet. I begged Jesus to change the way I feel. I cried out to the Lord and asked him to change me, change my mind. I begged him. I didn't know how to articulate it. I didn't know what to do. So I was in this dark closet by myself, crying out to the Lord. And for me, my closet was 7 years. Had my first same-sex attraction in 3rd grade. What 3rd grader knows how to articulate that? And so while you're in this closet, you're sitting there and you're searching and you're screaming from within, but nobody hears you. You're changing from the outside, but nobody says anything. And then the only light you see is when you decide to say, I am gay. I was born this way. This is who I'm going to be. Because this fight I've been fighting by myself in this closet, I can't do it. So I'm going to leave all the truth I know in this closet. I'm going to leave everything I know about Jesus in this closet. And I'm going to walk away. And when I come out, I'm going to have a different name. I'm going to have a different personality. I'm going to have a different demeanor about myself. Although they may not articulate it the way I am, that is what's happening. So I want us to open our eyes a little bit. When we hear someone say, I'm gay, I'm coming out of the closet, the first thing we have to remember, they started out as someone's little boy and little girl. something happened. And what I was doing here, that was the best way I could protect that little girl that nobody protected. That was the best way I could make sure nobody else harmed her. I didn't know how to cry anymore, so everything I was going through internally, I expressed it outwardly, so my clothes were a sign to see who would know how to read them well, who would know how to respond to them well, or would they just react, oh, you're gay? I'm saying a lot. I'm saying extremely a lot. Even when we think about the Stonewall riots, just to go back a bit because I don't have a lot of time, when we think about the Stonewall riots, some people think about the Stonewall riots one perspective. It was a gay riot. I have a different theory. Back in 1969, here's my theory. There were two men that identified as gay, and they were walking down the street in their own personal affliction, trying to figure things out, and they decided to show public affection. And because of people that didn't understand what they were seeing and what they were looking at, they decided to harass them, to abuse them, and sometimes murder people because they didn't understand what they were watching. And so I believe when these two men took a stand, they didn't take a stand to ask your permission to be gay. They didn't take a stand where they wanted all of this LGBTQ to go on in the schools or in the entertainment industry or on television or anywhere you go, or try to bombard our churches with this. Their first intention was, hey, I'm a human. You may not understand what I'm going through, but you have no right to spit on me. You have no right to hit me. You have no right to murder me. You have no right to beat me. And so words spread throughout the country of their demonstration. And they were joined the next day by thousands and thousands of other gay identified people that was in the same affliction that said, I'm with you. I'm tired of people being allowed to spit on me and hit me and tell me I'm an abomination and shun me from the church just because I'm battling something that they don't know how to comprehend. It was a stand to be taken as a human being. But even though their intentions may not have been what we see today, there's still a spiritual force, unclean spiritual force that is going on behind the scenes in homosexuality that we can't forget about. Now, we can never forget there's a little girl in there somewhere, but she's not standing at the forefront. So one of the things we have to understand is, remember, we got to know when we're talking to that little girl and when we're talking to that demonic spirit, because those are two different people. So I'm going to take you into her world, because see, her name wasn't Taisha. They called her nephew. That's why a lot of people change their names, because the name reminds them of who they really are. It reminds them of life. It reminds them of hope. It reminds them of faith. It sometimes reminds them of Jesus. You calling them simply by their first name. So I'm going to take you into her world, and it gets really dark in here, but I won't leave you there. So looking at Romans chapter 1, starting at verse 18, it says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress truth by their wickedness. I'm going to skip down to 21. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, and their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. 24. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity and the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchange. This is where their exchange takes place, in that closet. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and began to worship and serve created things rather than the Creator. That exchange takes place in that closet. That's why when a person says they come out and they're familiar, but they're unfamiliar, because they left so much in that closet. And you think a person like this can step foot into a church and you tell them what they're doing wrong and a light bulb pops off and they say, okay, I have to get it together? No. Because when they hear you have to change, they hear, I got to go back into that closet? I don't think I want to go back in there, because nobody knew what it was like in there. So we have to be prepared to go back into that closet with them until they dig through all that mess and find the truth they left in there, find the love that they forgot about, find that faith that they forgot about, and they have to pick it up. And sometimes we have to get a little dirty until they get clean. We have to continue to walk the walk with them in obedience. Because of this, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. God gave them over to shameful lust. Even the women exchanged natural relationships for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relationships. Here's the worst part. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, God gave them over. That is 3 times he gave them over to a depraved mind so that they do what ought not to be done. And it says here, they become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossipers, slanderers, God haters, insolent, arrogant, boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. LGBTQ. 2 genders. Inventing evil. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, not only do they continue to do these very things, but they also approve of those who practice them. So when someone comes out to me and they say I'm gay, I don't hear surface. I don't hear you're attracted to the same sex, you want to be in a relationship with someone of the same sex. I don't hear that. I don't even hear that they're an unbeliever. What I hear is, hey, my name is Taisha. I'm becoming filled with all kinds of wickedness, evil, greed, murder, strife, depravity. I slander God's name. I'm arrogant, boastful. I invent ways of doing evil. It was nice to meet you. Oh, wait, I forgot a few things. I have no understanding, no love, no fidelity. I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I'm going to continue to do it, and I'm also going to approve of those who do it. So I just came out. Nice to meet you. It shifts your perception. The person is not the problem. The spiritual nature behind what they're doing is the issue. So if we don't know when we're talking to a demonic spirit and a person, again, it's not them that have the problem, it's us. Because a sinner is going to do what a sinner do. If a sinner has an addiction, they're going to find something to fulfill that addiction. If they have a same-sex attraction, they're going to connect with something that makes them feel connected to that same-sex attraction. So although this person may not know what they're doing and to what degree they've become filled with, they're making themselves accessible to these things. We have to know so we can be aware and alert. Because I'm going to take you into her world. So because I was pretending to be a man, I never pull from natural emotions. I always pull from unnatural places, and anything unnatural is not of God. Growing up, I grew up around men that sexually, physically, and mentally abused every single woman that they were with. And because I wasn't a biological male, I had to look at what I was exposed to in order to understand how to take on the persona of a man. And so as I began relationships with these women and they began to hurt my feelings, and I told myself I can't cry because I'm a boy and boys don't cry. I can't express my emotions because growing up I heard men don't express their emotions. So I'm suppressing my natural woman instincts. I'm suppressing everything that makes me me. And then I had to pull from these unnatural places. So I too became not only physically, but sexually and mentally abusive to every single woman that I was with. Don't forget about that little girl somewhere deep in there. But this is the reality of what I was becoming, what I was filled with. I knew what I was doing when I went to the household of parents. I knew to act like I was just a great basketball player so they wouldn't question too much of why I was dressed like a boy. They would just say, oh, she's an athlete, she's a tomboy. I don't remember in the Bible where God put anybody between the gender. What is tomboy? Because tomboy makes me believe I'm less than a girl. I'll never amount to what a girl is supposed to be, so you put me in the middle. And I'm going to choose what you acknowledge the most. And you acknowledge me acting more like a boy than a girl.